Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. This is a mini pre-match edition ahead of Cheltenham on Monday. It's like you've got a big, massive, giant Easter egg, Seb, and this is like a few mini eggs just to complement it, isn't it? Seb Brown's here to talk Cheltenham with me. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Thank you. Yes, this is the mini cream egg next to the massive normal Easter egg on Easter Sunday. So happy Easter to everyone watching and listening.
Yeah, stuff your faces full of Easter egg. Why not? It's the time of year for it.
Enjoy a roast and do traditional Sunday things like wash the cars and that kind of stuff. Exactly
right. Ahead of football on Monday, we've already confirmed a few weeks back it's the run-in. Is this kind of the business end? I don't know. We've only kind of a couple more games into it, isn't it? But Easter the couple of games across Easter builds the pressure a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, run-in, I think I'll class it still as the run-in, and then the Peterborough weekend, I think, will become the business end when you've got, Peterborough, Barnsley, Exeter, Fleetwood, 4 to go. So until then, I'll still class this is the run-in and the games that come immediately after this one with next week against Charlton and Port Vale.
Official confirmation provided by Seb Brown there, everyone. Let's jump straight into business with Cheltenham then. Seb, give us the rundown on where they stand up at the league table up at the same time so folk can see that. But yeah, tell us all about them.
Doing okay, aren't they? They're currently 16th in the league, won 12, drawn 9, lost 19 games so far this season. They're on 45 points, so I guess we'll debate, are they still in and around the relegation scrap? Also, if you look at that league table you've got on the screen there, they are 7 points out of it, albeit that Accrington have a game in hand, as do Cambridge. So they're doing okay, I think. They're tied on 45 points with a couple of other teams. Port Vale, who are looking like they're in a little bit of trouble with the way they're kind of tumbling down the league, and Burton are there with them as well. The last 6 form is pretty decent, to be fair. They lost the last one, but before that it was 3 draws and 2 wins, so they're by no means coming into this in a bad run of form. And although they lost the last one out, we should take them very, very seriously, because I don't think this is going to be that much of a straightforward game. I think we'll win. I think we're rightly so, we're favourites given the form we're in, but I was there last season very early on in the game changer / Paul Cook kind of era, and I remember the horror show that night. So I don't think this is going to be as straightforward as people maybe do think.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of a hoodoo over us, but different team now, Seb, aren't we?
We've never beaten them, have we, at this level? So we had the loss and draw last year, and then obviously we had the frustrating draw in November, which we'll talk about in a second. So in the 3 games we've played them since we came back down, we haven't actually beaten them yet.
Worth noting, I mean, the goal difference isn't particularly exciting or impressive, is it? 34 goals scored, 51 goals against. There's negative 17 goal difference there. And you mentioned that last 6 form, it's the 11th best in the league, so pretty good. But home record's pretty strong as well. But last 6, I'm 15th in the form table for home games alone. Only 1 defeat in there though, Seb. But it looks to be that they're very heavily reliant on Alfie May's goal output. We'll talk more about him shortly. But it's the lack of goals for that's probably keeping them down in the lower reaches of the League One table. But actually, the defensive record is what's keeping them away from the bottom 4. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, they're probably where they kind of expect to be, with the budget they've got, and obviously coming up from League Two for the start of last season, 2021, 2022. All they would have probably, wanted is to kind of finish above the League One relegation zone. They did well last season, done well so far this season, and I think if they can kind of finish where they are, there or thereabouts, and kind of maintain that 5-6 point gap over the bottom 4, they'll class that as a pretty successful season, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, worth noting that they're one of the form teams in the bottom 10 or so, along with MK Dons and Burton. But yeah, you mentioned Port Vale there. Bristol Rovers, inconsistent, but yeah, probably enough about them.
I think they'll be okay. Yeah, they've got a goal scorer. We'll talk about Alfie, mate. They've got a goal scorer, so they've got something that a lot of sides down there simply don't have. They've got someone that can deliver goals, and barring an injury to him, I think they'll be okay. I mean, you don't tend to get sides at the bottom who are bottom after 40, 41 games, don't really put runs together to claw themselves back out of it. I know they've got a couple of games in hand. The likes of Accrington and Cambridge do have a game in hand over them, but I can't see them making up 7 points with what we've got 7 games to go at this stage of the season. So probably 1, maybe 2 more wins for them. I think they'll be fine.
There you go. That's another clip for us to register for Cheltenham fans. Last time out, defeat at Lincoln. I mean, not a happy place for anyone to go, really, Lincoln, but didn't feel like they turned up, Seb, and the stats kind of confirmed that they probably didn't deserve much from the game.
Yeah, 2-0 defeat. It was a double by Ben House. 46% possession to Lincoln's 54. 14 shots each on target, so pretty even on the shots ratio. Only created one big chance to Lincoln's 2, and their XG for Cheltenham was only 0.82. Lincoln's was 1.42. So yeah, a pretty routine win. Lincoln isn't an easy place to go, as we know. They've got a great record against the top sides, and obviously they do deliver against the bottom sides, which is where they are in the league. So it's they're not going into it on the best run after yesterday. However, their recent run before that is pretty decent, so they should be kind of respected.
Yeah, Lincoln are a little bit of a statistical anomaly, aren't they? And
well, hopefully, because they've got Plymouth,
Sheffield Wednesday can tell you about them. We can tell you about them. So
yeah, exactly. And they go to Plymouth tomorrow, don't they? So this is going out on the Sunday. The Monday game is Lincoln going to Plymouth. So hopefully they continue that anomaly and do us a favour.
Fingers crossed. Let's remind ourselves of the 1-1 draw from earlier in the season, which kind of soured the Blue Monday Live event.
We had
just another, in terms of statistical anomalies, we talk about Lincoln, but bloody hell, talk to us about the stats in this one.
This was a freak game, wasn't it? Yeah, we had the Blue Monday Live event in the Sir Bobby Robson suite that night, and we kind of figured we'd go into it off the back of a morale boosting win. I think Ben did a pre-record because he couldn't make it, saying we'll have beaten Cheltenham during the day. So have a great night tonight, and it didn't work out that way. We went 1-0 up, didn't we, through Wolfenden relatively early from a Leif Davis corner. Should have gone 2-0 up. I remember Harness hitting the bar and it kind of bounced down nearest the line, but then Ryan Broom equalises. Walton was on that kind of dodgy run of form. I remember thinking he should have done better with the effort. It kind of squirmed underneath him. Sorry.
Is this post-Charlton? Sorry.
I think so. Yeah, or maybe that was the one after. I can't remember. But he was going through a bit of a dodgy run of form, and the shot squirmed underneath him. And then it was all us in the second half. We threw everything at them, including the proverbial kitchen sink, and we finished with 75% possession, 31 shots. Only 4 of them were on target. Cheltenham had 4 shots in total, only 1 on target, the one they scored from. And I think we summed up when it wasn't our day. Do you remember when Kamara hit the inside of the post in the 90-plus minute at the North Stand end? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to hit the post and fly into the net, and it just bounces straight back out again. And I think at that point, we all kind of knew it was one of those games where we all said afterwards we could be playing for another 2 hours and we still wouldn't have scored. So a frustrating game, but one the stats bore out that we should have won fairly comfortably.
You feel with our January editions, we'd have strolled that one, wouldn't we? But
I think so, yeah.
Anyway, and just to continue the misery in our recent history against them, you were at Cheltenham early, was it August last season?
It was. I think it was game 3, I think. I'm sure it was, Morecambe on the opening day, then away to Burton. I think it was game 3, Cheltenham. And we started well. We went 1-0 up. Matt Penny scored from the edge of the area with a great strike. And then Macaulay Bonne obviously had the horror miss. I can't remember if that was before or after the goal, but he had the one where it kind of bounces over the keeper, and all he's got to do is side foot it home, and he kind of doesn't know whether he should head it or side foot it, and he ends up missing it. And then we get through to half time fairly comfortably, and in the second half, God, it was a barrage of long throws from Ben Tozer, who's since gone to Wrexham, and they equalised through a second phase of play off one of the long throws in the 62nd minute. Callum Wright gets the equaliser when he was on loan from Leicester, and they win it quite late on. It was past 80 minutes, 81, 82, I think it was. Again, a long throw again. I remember people around me and me on the night were screaming, just put it out for a corner, because their corners were pretty ineffective, but we were just obviously putting the ball out for throw-ins, and they were taking full advantage. They won it fairly late on, and we were still in that gel phase, and Paul Cook did the thing at the end where he stands by the dugout and he shakes all the Cheltenham players' hands, but he ignores all our players, and you kind of start to think, right, I wasn't entirely sure the season was going to start this way, because I think at that point we had 1 point from the first 3 games, and that point came with a 90th minute equaliser by Macaulay Bonne on the opening day of the season. So it was one of those where you kind of thought, oh, this isn't how I thought it was going to be, and we all know what was to happen. But a quick quiz question for you. So obviously that was the 3rd game of last season. How many players do you reckon started that game that started yesterday?
Oh, that's a good shout. So Walton wouldn't have been in the team by that point, would he? Penny obviously wasn't in. Yeah, Penny wasn't around. Maybe Wolfenden's one. Burns might be one.
Wolfenden's one.
Chaplin.
No, just Wolfenden and Cameron Burgess.
Wow. Cameron Burgess. Wow, he's
I think it was his debut. Yeah, I think it was his debut. I think he was thrown straight in. It was because we had Enciala, wasn't he? Was the partner for Wolfenden on the opening day. So I think Burgess was signed and pretty much thrown straight into the deep end. Donatian was the right back. Obviously, he was on the bench yesterday, and Jackson came off the bench, who obviously was involved as well. So, but yeah, it was a midfield of Raheem Harper and Lee Evans, and Macaulay Bonne and Joe Pigott were kind of the front 1 and 2, and Carl Edwards, I think it was his debut. He played the full 90, and just crazy the amount of turnover from not that long ago in reality. You're talking, I know it's start of last season, but there only been 3 transfer windows since then, and nearly an entire new 11. So
much change, and we'd already demolished the previous squad, haven't we? Blimey,
exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I've got a quiz question to turn back on you then. We've mentioned their names already, but two of Ipswich's starting 11, as it is now, have had loan spells at Cheltenham. Can you name them?
Not a clue. Of yesterday's starting 11.
Yeah. Good Friday.
No, I have not got a clue.
Well, but Burgess is one, ironically.
Okay.
He made his debut that, and Wes Burns as well. I'm reliably informed by my mate John Palmer, works for Gloucestershire Online, and he's a Cheltenham blogger and author and so on. And he told me that, so I have to trust him on it. I didn't bother to verify it, which is brilliant. I'm already second guessing myself, but there you go. We've exchanged. We haven't exchanged Easter eggs. We've exchanged quiz questions, and that's what it's really about. That's what the spirit of Easter is all about. Let's talk about Wade Elliott, Seb. Doing really well, probably. I think a little under pressure, maybe, but had an excellent March. Thanks largely to Alfie May's form, but doing all right there, isn't he?
He is, yes. He's been on the coaching staff since 2020, the summer of 2020, and obviously he replaced Michael Duff when he moved on to Barnsley last summer. So he was a first-team coach that kind of got promoted to the full-time gig. He's best known for his playing days at all the Bees. When I was doing the brief bit of research I did for this, I must say thank you to you for all the research this week. But his playing career was Bashley, Bournemouth, Burnley, Birmingham, and Bristol City. Didn't play for any other side, so he only played for sides that started with a B. And I think he's doing okay. Obviously, it's his first kind of full season as the full-time manager. He's steered them to mid-table. We've just debated a few minutes ago, are they still going to get sucked back into it? But I don't think they will, and I think that's all they can really expect, and it seems to be a decent kind of season. They've got a goal scorer in the side. If they can hang on to him in the summer and look to go again, they can kind of again look to consolidate and kind of finish in that sort of 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th position. He
was quite bullish in his post-match. Definitely was not happy with the performance of Lincoln. I think he paid credit to Lincoln for stifling the life out of the game, I think was his words. But I think was asked about whether he's going to deploy the low block as he did at Portman Road, and suggested that Cheltenham will try and win it. So he's feeling confident about that. And he's been particularly consistent with the 3 at the back choice, Seb, but maybe some variation around the midfield and the attacking situation. But it's probably a 2 up front, is it?
Yeah, 3-4-1-2 is the likelihood. So you've got the 3 at the back, 2 wing backs, 2 a solid base in central midfield, and number 10, and then behind 2 kind of strikers. They kind of differentiate between that and a 3-4-2-1, where they have 2 10s and a sole striker, depending on availability and injuries and stuff. So that's the way that they'll most likely do it: 2 up front and a 3 at the back, which is like we say on this show before, the 3 at the back. It seems to be a system that the vast majority of sides in this league do kind of look to employ at the moment.
Yeah, and that you've got the the wing backs, as you say, which leaves 3 central midfielders. And John was saying that it's essentially a tripod depending on the opposition. So it's either 2 sitters and 1 attacker, or you reverse it depending on the opposition. So
I presume for us, it'd be brave to play the more advanced one, wouldn't it? You'd go, I kind of stifle the midfield or have one slightly deeper to try and maybe pick up the runs that Chaplin makes and try and close out that space that Chaplin will find.
Yeah, let's talk about the key men then in that team. We've mentioned him so much already, Seb, for very good reasons because of his stats. Talk to us about Alfie May.
Alfie May is the main guy. Isn't he older than I thought? 29 years old. For some reason in my head, he was 25, 26 years old, which may be why he's not kind of made a move last summer. He's the League One player of the month for the month just gone, obviously. He scored 14 goals so far this season, also missed 11 big chances. So he could be higher in the goal scoring rates as well. 8 of those goals have come at home. He's got 3 assists. Averages 3 shots per 90 minutes, scored 23 goals last season as well in the league. So he's not a flash in the pan. He's not a Joe Pigott or a Stockton, for example. He's someone who delivered last season and is doing the same this year. I'm sure everyone's seen his double at Peterborough. Would that have been 2-3 weeks ago now? With that amazing effort from the halfway line. So he scores all different kind of goals. Been a non-league striker for the vast majority of his career. Got moved to Doncaster, 10 goals in 92 appearances for them. before moving to Cheltenham in 2020. So yeah, he's kind of always delivered wherever he's been, and he's very much their main guy. I mean, you and Dave were talking about it last night on the post-match reaction show that he's responsible for over 40% of their goals. He's very much the main man and the guy they look to turn to deliver.
Yeah, worth noting. I mean, he wasn't massively prolific. 10 goals in 92 appearances for Doncaster, which you mentioned. They took the punt on him at non-league level. But the move to Cheltenham, it feels like a match made in heaven for him. 51 goals in 134 appearances, so slightly more than a goal every 3 matches. And definitely the main man this season, given the lack of goals elsewhere in the team. And worth noting that their second highest goal scorer is no longer at the club. It's kind of a Forest Green, Connor Wycombe type situation, isn't it? We expect it to be Aidan Keener against alongside Alfie May, but Dan and Lundell, who had 4 goals there before he was recalled by Southampton, is now at Bolton. So there are. If you keep Alfie May quiet, that might go a long way to keeping Cheltenham quiet, But
yeah, very much so. But the vast majority of sides have found this season that's very difficult to do. He's kind of a bit of a pest, isn't he? He kind of pops up everywhere, and he's one of those pesty kind of players. I'd probably liken him a bit to someone, obviously not the same level, someone like Jamie Vardy, who's just constantly throughout the game, kind of going and stuff. And he's one of those kind of players in this league, difficult to stop. Yeah,
probably. He's only 5'9", so quite diminutive, but he's quick, pacey, good on the ball, and as you say, kind of crops up in places that if defenders lose track, he'll have a tap in because you've switched off. So that's the kind of player he is. So and if it isn't working, if he's been stifled out of attempts within the 6-yard, 18-yard box, he'll just ping one from 20 yards, won't he? So we'll have to be on our toes looking after him. And in terms of other players to kind of key players, Liam Sercombe, box-to-box midfielder's got 3 assists, creates good number of chances. Caleb Taylor's quite rated at centre-back, 20-year-old, involved in quite a lot of passing out from the back, but also gets involved with clearances as well. And good number of clean sheets as well, Seb.
Yeah, Luke Southwood is the keeper. He's kept 15 clean sheets overall, and he's one of those stats where he's prevented 4 goals more than he than should have been scored. We always talk about Cooper being top of those lists, and maybe Walton should be a little bit further up. So he's a decent keeper, but 15 clean sheets does stand out because traditionally sides towards that side of the that end of the table don't keep that many clean sheets. That's pretty decent, I thought.
Yeah, and 10 clean sheets kept at home as well. It's 4th best in the division, so that's something that they are excelling in, and it will be an interesting test to see how we get on. I'm sure there are people out there, Seb, asking about Elkan Baggott. His appearances have been limited for one thing or another. One appearance so far, been on international duty. But I think players are coming back from injury and diminishing his opportunities there.
Do you think he should have stayed at Gillingham? I think he'd made 17 starts, 19 appearances at Gillingham in League Two. Do you think maybe with hindsight we should have left him there to play 30, 35 games this season?
I don't know. I think on paper it makes sense to bring him up a level if he can play, but on the basis that he plays. And I think it's kind of like, our knowledge of arranging loan deals is limited to what we do on Football Manager, right? But you kind of make you specify that he's going to start a certain number of games, or you pay us extra, kind of thing. And maybe that's the situation there. But Gillingham's resurgence coincided with Baggott leaving, wasn't it?
True. True. Yeah. Well, they invested heavily, didn't they? They invested in Gillingham invested in January, so I guess maybe he found it a bit difficult. I don't know. I think the best thing for these young players' development is game time. So I think if you'd given me the choice to say he'll go to Cheltenham, I guess they wouldn't have expected him to have only started 1 game. That wouldn't have been on the cards during the negotiation period. And he still played football for Indonesia, so he has played some in the last kind of 3-4 months or so. But maybe if they're looking back, maybe 30 games at League Two level would have been better for his development. It'd be interesting one next year what we do with him. I guess presumably another loan, maybe to a League One side where he is going to get more opportunities and more game time, maybe 25, 30 appearances, which will aid his development. Because he signed a 3-year deal, wasn't it, before he went to Gillingham last summer? So he's clearly one they've got their arm for the future. So be interesting to see what happens when he comes back in the summer.
Same with Corey Ndaba. What do you do with Corey Ndaba?
I think he'll be sold, to be honest. Yeah, I think he'll be, because he's not, Baggott's 19, 20, isn't he? Whereas Ndaba must be now 22.
I think
because Lambert was going to give him a debut in the relegation season, wasn't he? So I think he was 18 back then, and he's kind of, a few loans out that haven't really worked out that much. So I think Ndaba's one who'll probably move on in the summer because, we've moved on as a club.
Fair enough. Our mate John, as we mentioned before, at John Palmer Sport, by the way, if you want to give him a follow, excellent, very knowledgeable guy. Ahead of the game on Monday, he's given some heads up on possible rotations or players returning from injury. Elliot Bonds might come into the midfield. We talked about this kind of configuration, the tripod configuration. So Elliot Bonds might be an option there, possibly also Taylor Perry, who's maybe more of an attacking midfielder. He's been out with illness, so he's expected to possibly feature maybe from the bench. Ryan Jackson's got quite a few assists, but has missed games since the Sheffield Wednesday draw. Ryan Broom, who's a familiar name, scored the goal, obviously, at Portland
Goal
Road.
scorer, yeah.
He's been filling in. And he also mentioned that Will Ferry is likely to return at left wing back. Ben Williams featured it against Lincoln. So there's some names to look out for as well. Do you want to talk us through some stats? I'm happy to chip in on the XG stuff, but everything I think is self-explanatory, I think.
Yeah, so they've scored 19 goals at home, which is 21st in the league, so not amazing. 4 of those have come from set pieces, which again is 19th. So yeah, the stats are kind of slightly below their league position so far. They take average sort of 13 to 14 shots per game, which is mid-table. That's 10th. That's pretty decent. Shots on target is just over 3 per game, which again is 21st. So they have a fair few number of shots, but they're not necessarily the most kind of accurate with them. Possession-wise, 46.5 possession is the average, which is 19th, again, just below where they currently sit in the table. And they've got 73% short passes per game, so it's not going to be a side that looks to...
Yeah, I picked that one out. Sorry to jump in, because I guess people would look at 46.5% possession and historically we'd say, well, they're a long ball team.
They hoof it, yeah.
They go direct. But actually the fact that 73% of their passes per home game are short suggests that maybe they counterattack, Seb, maybe more than go direct. I mean, you're obviously...
Or maybe they just knock it around the back four like we used to do under Lambert.
Exactly right. Maybe and patiently try to find the opening to pass the ball to Alfie May, perhaps. But I did find that interesting, only 73%. But yeah, it's a fair point about Lambert ball. I thought you were quite gracious about their goals for and set piece goal stats. 21st is pretty crap, isn't it, when you think about it?
Well, it's below where they are, but it's not the worst. Yeah, it's...
Well, yeah, there's only 3 teams that are worse than them in terms of goals for. And worth noting, the XG, their expected goals is 1.3 goals per game, and they're currently scoring 0.95 goals per game. So they are maybe a little bit profligate. We mentioned the 11 chances missed by Alfie May, and even then he's got 14 goals. Yeah. It might be that the chances are being squandered somewhat because of the lack of quality or strength in depth behind Alfie May. Goals against low, we talked about that at the start. That's much better situation than the goals for.
Yeah, 23 conceded at the completely Suzuki Stadium or whatever it is called, which is 13th in the league. So that's pretty strong. 10 clean sheets, like we mentioned, for the keeper is the 4th best in the league. So again, that's good. And we're just worth going back. I've said a minute ago, maybe they're stat padding with passing it around the back, but their pass completion is only 63.2, which is 20th. So maybe that's not the case because you'd have much higher pass completion success if you were knocking it around the back, sort of man to man. So maybe that's not the case. They're just stat padding.
Yeah, and XGA 1.28 expected goals against, that is, versus 1.15 goals per game against. So, they're conceding the number of goals you'd expect them to concede, generally speaking, from the quality of chances they give up. They concede goals from set pieces. You mentioned 23 goals against, but 6 of those have come from set pieces. It's a particular strength of ours, isn't it? And they've conceded a couple of penalties as well. They get the tackles in, Seb, but they don't get the interceptions in. What's your conclusion maybe from that?
Yeah, tackles per game is 16.5, which is the 5th best, but interceptions is only 8, so that's 19th. So yeah, maybe a side that doesn't necessarily maybe read the game amazingly and then has to kind of react to miss chances and throw a tackle in rather than, have the foresight to step in and kind of cut out a ball. Fouls per game, they're not overly streetwise, 9.2, which is 23rd. Maybe that's an element an area they need to look to improve. Sometimes in a game you need to make those silly tactical fouls that you have to do sometimes to kind of, preserve leads and stop counterattacks. They're not great at that. They're very, very poor. So maybe that's an area they need to look to work on as well.
And a stat that I found, unsuccessful touches per 90, they're 4th highest for those as well. So that kind of chimes in with the low possession and the lowish pass completion as well. So
would you class as an unsuccessful touch, a touch that you make that rebounds straight to an opposition player?
Yeah, as in a misplaced pass. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Giving it sort of squandering possession. So there's quite a high proportion of those touches there. So again, that might work in our favour, particularly if we're going to... I thought the goals they conceded against Lincoln, to me, I'm trying to remember who it was in recent weeks. We watched the highlights, and defensively, the positioning was, Lincoln didn't have to work too hard to find the moves to get behind or to get around the Cheltenham back line. I guess that gave me some hope, Seb, along with some of these stats, that if we're at it, and we'll talk about us in a second, there is opportunities to score here. I know that Cheltenham's record is pretty good. We've obviously talked about the unpleasant and annoying history against them, but it's a different time, isn't it? Context is kind of a little bit key here, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're flying. If this is early on in the season or during that dodgy kind of run, sort of January, February time, then maybe it's a different kind of game. But we are absolutely flying at the moment. So we go there in full confidence. And yeah, they're a difficult side to score against at home. They've got a goal scorer in the side, but I would expect us to win. I don't think it'll be as straightforward or as easy as some of the runs we had earlier on in this kind of, some of the games earlier on in this run against teams in a similar position in the league, the likes of Burton maybe, and Morecambe and stuff, on Forest Green being slightly lower down. I don't think it'll be that straightforward, but given the form that we're in and the way everyone's playing, I do expect us to win.
Yeah, a final stat, 44% of their attacks come down the right-hand side, which is not a surprise when I tell you that Alfie May's a right footer. So there you go. So things to look out for. They're Ryan Broom also making a contribution perhaps on that as well. In terms of other games elsewhere in League One, before we talk about us, anything you want to pick out there, Seb? Obviously, we know the usual three other teams that we should be worrying about and looking at, but do you want to give us your thoughts?
Yes, obviously Barnsley have got Shrewsbury. I mean, they've dropped off now with the defeat yesterday, so I'm kind of it's very much a top three for the top two back on for me. I think personally, you've got hopefully can Accrington go to Hillsborough and do us a favour. Wednesday's form's dropped off a cliff. What is it? 4 points from the last 18 available or something. They've absolutely plummeted, haven't they? So Accrington, it's a big ask, I think, for them to go and do something there. But I kind of, I thought they would beat Oxford yesterday, and I thought they would beat Lincoln the week before. So they're just not at it at all at the moment. Obviously, we've all seen the clips yesterday of Barry Bannon and is it Liam Palmer, I think, have a bit of a set to and a shoving match, don't they, in the area? So it doesn't appear to be an overly happy camp at the moment. Lincoln, as we discussed earlier, are going to Home Park to try and stifle Plymouth's amazing home record. Hopefully they can do something for us. Plymouth obviously with two late-ish goals yesterday that saw them go top of the table. But all we can do, like we said previously, is focus on ourselves. What will be. If we can put in decent performances, win our remaining games, then everything will be okay.
Yeah, there you go. Another clip, everyone. Worth noting, we talked about Shrewsbury, who were playoff hunting when they came to Portman Road.
They lost 3-0 yesterday, 6-0 to Charlton the week before.
Yeah, they are 21st in the form table right now.
When we did the stats for that show only 2 weeks ago, under Cottrell, they had some of the best defensive stats in the league. They very rarely conceded goals at all, but they've completely dropped off a cliff. So I always had Plymouth had Exeter, I think it's next weekend, and then Shrewsbury, I think the midweek we've got Port Vale. They were back-to-back games, and they're both away from Plymouth. And I kind of thought, that might be the two games where it turns. But Shrewsbury at the moment, you can't rely on them for anything at the moment. So yeah, you
can't. But Exeter have got Peterborough, and Exeter 8th in the form league. Exeter, but really fascinating team, aren't they? Exeter. It's going to be interesting to see their contribution to the end of the season.
And Peterborough flying, aren't they? So I think Peterborough they'll win that one. And if they finish 6th on this amazing run of form, I wouldn't like to be the side that finishes 3rd and face them in the playoffs.
So that's the rest of League One. In terms of bits and pieces of information, we will be back Monday evening, 8 p.m, to talk live through the game, Cheltenham ITFC, and get your reaction, hopefully positivity, as we keep saying. So do join us then. And if you want to get involved in the discussion ahead of time, our match day chat will open tomorrow, Sunday afternoon. So today at 5 p.m-ish. Might be earlier if Seb's a bit excited as he was on Friday. Talk to us about Telegram very briefly, Seb.
It's great. Come and get involved. 2-week free trial. You won't lose anything. You can pick up some exclusives with Graham Mack from BBC Radio Suffolk and Andy Warren from the EATD, and Ben did something with the Not the Top 20 guys as well. So there's a few exclusive interviews in there that you won't find anywhere else. Once the paywall kicks in, it's only a £5 a month. It's well worth it for that to come and have some reasoned debate amongst town fans. And the match day chat's the best one, where it all kind of takes off the day before and we open it up on the evening before a match. And it was still going late last night on my drive back, which is brilliant. So great to get involved. Come and give it a go. You won't lose anything.
Worth noting as well, this podcast, our usual 3 shows a week. There's no change for that. No need to get Telegram to keep access to that. That will continue to be free down the YouTube, down the podcast feed as well. And all we ask for return, apart from your interaction, give us a shout in the comments, leave us a review as well. Tweet us maybe and let us know what you think. But a thumbs up and a subscribe is always very welcome as well. So please do get involved that way. And we really appreciate the level of support we've had of late. Numbers are increasing all the time. The more people get involved in the debate, as far as we're concerned, the better. So long may that continue. Let's talk about Ipswich then, Seb. Let's talk about what Kieran McKenna might be thinking. The thoughts that I've had, I'll put them to you. Broadhead's had a bit of a kicking from opposition players for the last two matches. And may this be a game where Freddie Ladapo's strengths may come into play, or am I barking up the wrong tree? Give us your thoughts.
I'd go Hurst personally. 4 in 4, scores in runs. I thought he was brilliant yesterday. The way he leads the line was absolutely superb. And like you guys pointed out, he didn't seem as knackered, did he, when he kind of went off? So maybe the fitness is telling, and the run of games he's getting is really, really helping him. So I'd have him starting. I'd like to see a similar situation to yesterday, obviously, where it's pretty comfortable at 65, 70 minutes, and we can just make a quadruple change and bring on, that must really deflate opposition benches, mustn't it? If you look across and, you've had Wes Burns running at you all game and suddenly Caden Jackson's coming on to replace him. It must be soul destroying. So I'd like to see a similar kind of thing to that. Broadhead is the one. Yeah, Harness I thought looked okay yesterday when he came on. I have criticised him in the past about struggling to get up to the tempo when he comes off the bench in games, but I thought he looked okay yesterday. So he'd be the logical kind of replacement, unless you're going to put Caden Jackson out on the on our left to kind of stifle the attacking play that they like to do down the right hand side. But for me, I'd start Hurst up front, and obviously the defence picks itself at the moment, as does the two in midfield. Chaplin has to start 18 league goals for the season. He'll get to 20, 22, whatever it is overall. And Burns is in immense form, isn't it? 5 assists in 5 games, like you mentioned last night, is tied with Mo Salah from a few years ago. So those two have to start for me. And it's not that, I know it seems strange, doesn't it, because it's Friday, Monday, but it's no different to a Saturday, Tuesday game, is it? It's not like a quick turnaround. I remember in the past, I think we'd play on a Saturday, then the Monday, and just have Easter Sunday off. So I think in the past the games have been a lot closer than they are this year. So hopefully with the sports science and all the stuff behind the scenes, the guys will be absolutely fine getting through the game. And when you're winning, you'll all want to play, won't you? Let's be honest, they'll all want to play, because winning breeds confidence and momentum. And if you're in a rubbish run of form, suddenly a knock becomes a little bit more serious, and you think, I'll just dip out of this one. But the way we're playing, everyone is going to want to be a part of it. So hopefully a professional job well done, and we can make changes at 60, 70 minutes with an eye on Charlton the following weekend.
Yeah, I was very much enjoying the marvels of modern science, all the special toys they've got, the cryo chambers and all that fun stuff.
The days of the magic sponge is long gone.
Yeah, we'll do your fitness test running up the hallways and
can you touch
the corridor
right?
in the hotel.
Yeah,
exactly right. Well, I concur with all of that. I wonder whether Davis might be rotated for Lee just for injuries and all that kind of stuff.
I was surprised he played the 90 yesterday. Yeah. I thought they'd bring on Dynastian and shift Clark across when he got so comfortable. But whatever. I guess all the science and all the data must have said he was absolutely fine. So that was great to see as well.
Bloody science and data in it. Yeah. So we'll wait and see. I'm sure. We'll find out first. You won't find out first because it will be on Twitter, but very shortly after it's posted on Twitter, it will be in the matchday chat, and we'll be dissecting that, I'm sure. But do join us 8 p.m. Monday evening to go through the game. Dare I ask for a prediction, Seb?
A narrow 1-0 win for Ipswich.
Oh, I was going to go for that as well. So there you go. Well, it will match off.
I'll change it. I'll go 2-1 then. We can't have the same.
The clean sheets run is over.
I'll go 2-1. Alfie May will score for them. And
30-yard or something stupid like that. Yeah, exactly right. Good stuff. Thank you, Seb, for your insights as always. Thank you, everyone, for watching. As we mentioned, join us on Monday, 8 p.m. Do give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Do give us a pod review, subscribe, etc., etc. And hopefully see you over on the Matchday chat as well on Telegram. Seb, do you want the final word, or is it mine?
No, it's got to keep it going. It's you. Yeah, I did it for the start of the run, but since you've done it, we've gone up to a whole different level. So all on you.
Thank you again, Seb. Thank you everyone again for watching. And come on, you Blues!